You're tuning into Ready, Set, Reset, where our goal is to help listeners reset their outlook by providing a closer look into behavioral and mental health in our youth. We visit with a range of professionals across the field to get their input and insight on what's really going on. Our first series kicks off with the Student Mental Health Chronicles, which features school counselors from across Texas, from public to private. This podcast is for educational and motivational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional training or personal therapy. All right, hello and welcome to the Ready, Set, Reset podcast. I'm your host, Sierra O'Neill, licensed professional counselor and founder of Reset IOP. With me is my co-host, Mrs. Penny Haight, licensed professional counselor supervisor and owner of Counseling by Penny and Associates.
I'm Penny, and I'm a former school counselor of 9 years. You are turning into an episode of an inspiring podcast that spotlights school counselors and the incredible work that they do day in and day out with students. The content you will hear on this podcast today is focused on the struggles in schools related to mental health of youth. We'll be providing weekly insights, resources, and solutions to address the growing and ongoing issues that will support other school counselors, parents, teachers, and the students.
All right, so our guest today is school counselor Miss Adriana McNellie, here with us today from Lake Dallas ISD. Welcome, Miss McNellie. How are you feeling today?
Hi, I'm feeling exhausted. It's been a long day here at this conference, but I also feel very just energized by it all at the same time.
Yeah, hey, I get that. It kind of comes, comes in that combination sometimes, especially when you're learning and being around peers and fellow school counselors, in this type of environment. So Miss McNellie, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your experience as a school counselor?
Yes, I am a school counselor at an elementary school. This is my second year, but I have 17 years of teaching in the classroom at the middle school level.
Okay. And as far as teaching in the classroom at a middle school level and being a school counselor at elementary level, what's the difference there?
Huge, huge difference. They are smaller.
Yeah.
They have a lot of needs, and I feel that they also can also have more. I can pour more in. I feel that they are more apt to learn and to take the advice versus the middle schoolers who think they know it all.
Okay. I have heard quite often that middle school level, you do know it all. So, so I think, that into that, is quite common, but they have a lot to learn, unfortunately. I think it's great, again, that you are investing your time into them, because it's like at that age. I think we had a counselor earlier said that they feel like that middle school are the grades and the ages where they feel like parents just kind of back off.
Yes. And I have a middle schooler and a high schooler. So it is nice to work away from that age group while I'm doing it at home.
Yeah.
But it is, I really did love teaching middle school kids. And it's because I love them so much, I wanted to be a counselor because I knew I didn't want to just teach academics. I knew they needed more than just academics, but the social and emotional in education and that. Yeah.
I wonder if you like the elementary because you think that maybe if I could give them psychoeducation or prevent some of the things that or teach them skills and coping strategies, that maybe by the time they get to middle school, they wouldn't experience maybe some of the heartache and pain that they do.
Equipping them early, giving them the foundations, just like parenting. You're teaching them early on, like you put the hard work in early, so then hopefully later it's going to be a little easier.
Yeah.
That's the hope.
You mentioned earlier about feeling both exhausted and excited. And I think that that's something that mental health professionals should talk about with kids is that that both can be true. Both can be true.
Absolutely. So that just reminds me of a demonstration that was shown to me about primary emotions and secondary emotions.
and just showing that, anxiety, that's the thing, right? But that's really two emotions coming together. It's fear meeting with anticipation. And so explaining that to even an adult, getting them to realize, like, oh, so when I anticipate something with fear, that's where my anxiety comes from. If I can prepare and know when I get afraid with something I'm anticipating, I can then start preparing and using strategies to help bring that level of anxiety down.
I think that's perfect way to explain it and put it out there, and definitely educate some of our other listeners further to understand that connection as well. So we'll go ahead and jump into some questions here, Ms. McNellie. So what are the biggest struggles with teachers or other staff members that interact with students?
Well, it a lot. Like I said, I've been a teacher for 17 years, and I knew that my students needed more than just the the learning math. And I just think it's time. Teachers don't have a lot of time to pour into
Right.
that part of a student's life. They're being thrown all kinds of demands on new um, curriculums that they have to start doing, recording, how, and even as I come to the elementary level, they do things that I'm not even aware of. They do so much more. And I think they want to know more, but they just don't have the time to learn more. And it's just easier to just find someone who they feel is the expert, but really they're experts too. And they just need to be shown that. And it really is a challenge, I think.
So, what are ways that we can support? Because I mean, now more than ever, the elementary, all the teachers, there's so much more pressure, more expectations, in the curriculum and behaviors escalating with children, and it just school is harder. What can we do to support the teachers as counselors, school counselors?
That is a good question. I think um, just trying to maybe pushing into the classrooms more, and instead of just rescuing all the time, just giving resources, which I'm hoping to as I've been here learning so much, trying to see how I can pass that on to my teachers to um, enable them to be the experts, and to, gain connection. I think that's what I've heard the theme here is just connection. And as a school counselor, I wish I could connect with all 600 of my students, but I can't. But a teacher could connect with 25 of hers. So just empowering them in that and encouraging them in that, I think would be helpful.
I love that you said pushing in more because, sometimes it's hard as a counselor to go, oh, God, I got to make all the guidance lessons and I have to be in there a certain amount of time. But if you just pushed in and did like a mindfulness activity that took 2 or 3 minutes, then the students are knowing who you are and the teachers are knowing who, and you're giving support to them.
Yeah. So when you say, because I do my guidance lessons, but now I'm wondering, because I said I want to empower the teachers, if not, maybe including them more in my lesson. So that way the kids aren't looking at me, they're looking at their teacher as being the expert on those things. Just a thought. I don't know. I'll have to ask my
I love
teacher.
that. I love that. Yeah.
And another idea might be we had a school counselor in one of our previous episodes that mentions that she does a monthly or biweekly newsletter, and she calls it, like Miss Johnson's, counseling corner, and she sends that out to the parents and to the teachers, just in raising some awareness around maybe if there's some new trends going on, some things to be on the lookout for. But it was just a brief newsletter that she put out, every other week or once a month to put some information out there. And then also too, I know her district allowed for some type of funding, or she might have been going in her own pocket, but to do some incentives for teachers. So like a self-care, gift card or buying them lunch. If they implemented certain things in their classrooms that you recommended to them, or something like that could be a good idea.
Yeah, that is. But you said the magic word, the money there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very hard to come and
Yeah.
come by. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, other than that, like I said, the newsletter, if nothing else, to be able to send that out, and see if they can get connected and may respond to that in any way. So,
Yeah.
so if we looked at, kind of things, next, as far as some key indicators or warning signs that school counselors should be aware of when it comes to students and mental health, what are some of those that you may put out there?
Okay. Well, I think for warning signs for students, it would be and their mental health is to look at those risk factors, and that's not going to necessarily show up when they're sitting in your classroom.
Mhm.
You have to really know the child and their background. So, risk factors would include, students that come from single parent homes. Maybe their parents are deported or incarcerated.
Mhm.
Um, and then, just there's just a lot of things that I think can affect their development, especially at elementary, because if they are in trauma, and a lot of times people think trauma is, oh, they were sexually abused,
Mhm.
which yes, that is, but there's a difference. There's acute trauma, and then there's the ongoing, like
Yes.
I've heard of big T, little T trauma, right?
Mhm.
So if even poverty, that is traumatic if they are, living paycheck by paycheck or not in home, like McKinney Bento, thinking of our students in that. Those are all risk factors for or warning signs, risk factors for their mental health.
So many of our kids in Title I schools have the little T trauma. It's just event after event, and they can be well, that's not that big deal that your lights were turned out. But then on top of that, mom lost her job, and then somebody died, and it's just everything's so close together.
Illness is another one.
Illnesses. I have just side note. I have a llama that is named Little T for little T trauma because her mother abandoned her, would not nurse her, and she had to be nursed by another llama that had a baby 3 weeks before, took her into the herd. And so she's Little T.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and like I said, as you mentioned, I think the education on what trauma is minimal for outside of the counseling realm. Those things that are normalized in everyday life of like, it's not trauma that's normal for our family, that generational trauma that continues, that we have to just really point out and help the kids understand, and then the parents too. Because if they keep normalizing it, then how will the kid ever get away from it, right?
Yeah.
So, as far as working with the kids further, are there specific initiatives or activities that you've implemented to enhance the overall well-being of the students that you work with?
Yeah, I try to just get to know them, and give them a lot of positive affirmations. And then I try to do groups. It's hard,
Yeah.
because lunch times, is hard. And I get pulled away for certain things sometimes here and there. So groups can be a challenge, but I think getting the kids to hear from each other with an adult who can help guide their conversation in a healthy way, and then teaching them certain communication skills, like that's aggressive, that's passive aggressive, this is assertive, how do we want to communicate, just just teaching them and listening to them, and I also yeah, teaching them about their feelings, like I had mentioned earlier, and just letting them know that those feelings are fleeting, they don't define them, they don't even define the truth a lot of times, and helping them to see what's true in this and teaching them perspective. My favorite is showing them the duck and the rabbit illusion. Have you seen that one? Yeah, that's so fun. They're like, I see a duck. I see a rabbit. Oh, I see both. And sometimes they don't see both because they're little.
Yeah.
It works. It's better with the fifth and fourth and third graders.
Yeah,
Yeah.
getting that across.
But
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, and groups are so effective. I think a lot of kids are a little fearful when they come into groups because it's like, I don't want to be judged. I don't want people to, know what's going on with me. But at the end of the day, they've got the same thing at the core going on. It's just presenting in a different way. So with our after school program, that's our basis. We do intensive outpatient therapy. They have 3 groups per day. And it's just that setting to where some of the kids that come together in these groups would never come together at school.
that's good.
So they find themselves in this group and understanding that, wow, this kid that I would have never associated outside of here is dealing with something so similar. This is how they're addressing it, or this is what's going on. And so it helps them have to find some type of normalcy to be able to start working on that issue at hand, knowing that they're not alone. And again, like you said, the communication they work on in those different perspectives just help them to better thrive in so many ways. So I know you said as far as like your limitations, with being able to do groups, just kind of find yourself, not having as many opportunities. Is that something that the school supports you on further to try to make time or maybe even, consider giving kids excuses if they have to miss part of a class, if this is something that needs to be a priority?
Yeah, I think I can definitely get some support. I've learned a lot here again, like I've said. She was talking about making the calendar and setting it up, color coding it, and doing the 80/20 rule, following that. So I think just going back and just being real serious about, hey, I really want to be intentional with my time here as a counselor. Um, how can we do that? Here's my calendar. And I think that session, she even put it on her door for the week. So everyone walking by will see and know, oh, this is where she's going to be at and what she's doing. Because I understand emergencies pop up. I mean, that's the nature of our job. But still trying to see, again, like delegate that out. I think, Johnny Quinn talked about that, delegating if we can. So, yeah.
Right. When I was a counselor, I would do a lunch bunch. So I would have we had RTI meetings, and then through the RTI meetings, I was seeing the kids that really were having issues academically, socially, emotionally, and we started targeting. Okay, that's a person that we're gonna do. It became an RTI intervention, and so that was the person that was going to go into the lunch bunch group. And then some of the things that we talked about is we talked about like relationships with teachers, and then kids, and then the group was so amazing because there'd be somebody in that group that had a good relationship or had figured out that teacher. Right. And they'd say, hey, I know how to get around Miss So-and-so. Here's what you do. You can get along with her if you do this. You know what? As long as you don't talk when she's teaching, you're fine. You can talk after. She don't care. Right.
Yeah.
And so the kids would help each other with that. And sometimes it would be, well, let's have a backpack race and clean out your backpack. Who's going to get the cleanest backpack? Have like something. And then, what does a clean backpack look like? Right. And so I'd have a messy one and a dirty one. And then we'd do a line. And I said, okay, everybody find your messy team has to find the ruler. Clean team, find the ruler. And they could find it in a clean backpack. Oh, this team won. Well, why did that team win? To motivate them to want to clean their backpack. So we did all kinds of like strategies to help them be ready to learn. Yes. Yes.
Well, all right, Miss McNellie. Well, I feel like we've had a great conversation today. I appreciate you sitting down with us and talking a little bit more about what you deal with, day in and day out in your district and within your school. But before we close, if you had one thing to leave with our listeners, what would that be?
I think it would be connection. I've heard it said, rules without relationship leads to rebellion. So, but relationship without rules leads to chaos. So you want to have both relationship and rules. So, so just finding that balance, make that connection, and just set it.
Okay, I think that's great. All right, well, I think that's a great note to close off on. That's all for us today. Thanks for tuning in and taking the time out of your day to listen in on mental health. And remember, sometimes all it takes is resetting your outlook. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Ready, Set, Reset 1. Follow us on Instagram at ready_set_reset1 for mental health tips, laughs, and motivation. And if you know a student or have a child in the Fort Worth area that could use some additional support, visit our website at sunflowersigma.com to see if Reset IOB is right for them. You will find the resources discussed in today's podcast in the description area.